almost like he didn't want attention to be brought on him, you know, even though he was an important person. It wasn't until much later that I became aware of the fact that he was the first person of African descent to serve as a judge in the state of Ohio. I understand that, you know, Ohio was formed somewhere in the early part of the 19th century, okay? It was 1942 before Perry B. Jackson took the bench. By the time I got to be a lawyer, Judge Jackson actually had already retired. He retired the same year that I got my license to practice. And the year after that, I went to work for the county prosecutor's office, and I found out at that point that he was so respected by his peers, as Judge Moore has already pointed out, that they had asked him to become a quote-unquote visiting judge, which was really a euphemism, because Judge Jackson was here every day. He was here when the rest of them were here. Okay? And he was here in the morning, and he was here later in the evening. He was here until the job got done. He was an exemplary individual, and he handled the overflow cases, the cases that nobody else really wanted to handle. They used to dump cases on Judge Jackson. You know, when you went into Judge Jackson's room, you were likely to see him handling the worst murder cases, the most complicated civil cases, the cases that everybody else really wanted to have their hands off. He never, you know, he was never hassled. He was always even-tempered, and he was always, from the day that I ever met him until the day that he passed from the scene, as sharp as a tack. So, in that capacity, I got a chance to practice before. So I actually got a chance to be in the room where it happened, right? And got a chance to see his thought process and to see how he worked with people. I think the best thing about Judge Jackson was that he had an incredible set of people skills. He was able to work with people that nobody else was able to work with, and he was able to get them to understand what they needed to be about as opposed to what they thought they needed. All told, Judge Jackson served approximately 42 years on the bench. 13 years as an elected and appointed member of the Cleveland Municipal Court, because, you know, he was elected and then they didn't re-elect him, and then he just turned right around the next time and ran again, and he was elected again. And he stayed on our bench, the Cleveland Municipal Court bench, for 13 years. And then ultimately saw an opportunity when they created the Domestic Relations Division of the Common Pleas Court to move over to the Common Pleas Court. He ran for that, and the people in their infinite wisdom went on and elected him to serve on that bench. He stayed in that position for 4 years, and then he decided, okay, enough of this, and he then ran for the Common Pleas General Division Court bench, where he served for the remaining 12 years that he was on the bench before they passed a law that said the judges had to retire at 70. So he retired, but when he took on the responsibility of being a visiting judge, he spent the next 13 years of his life as a visiting judge. He was one of the most respected people to ever, you know, be a judge in this building. And, you know, when he finally passed, there was an outpouring of support for him. You've already heard a lot about his contributions on the bench and off the bench. He was the first black to be elected to the General Assembly. He was the chief police prosecutor for the city of Cleveland. He served as secretary for the director of Cleveland Public Utilities. He co-founded the Cuyahoga County Republican Club. He was one of the original members of the John Harlan Law Club. He served as a trustee of St. John AME Church. He was the first African American to serve on the Greater Cleveland Council of Boy Scouts of America. He was an elk. He was a Mason. Maybe I'd have a better, maybe I could do this better if I said what he didn't do. Okay, because he was the man. I want to talk if you indulge me, okay? I want to talk about this statue. You know, he just came down one day and there it was. What y'all don't know, that this statue is here because of about a 10-year campaign that was waged by his nieces to both get it constructed and then to get it placed here. When they first came up with the idea of doing this, you know, they approached the county, and the county said, well, you know, we really don't do statuary in the Justice Center. Maybe you would like to have the statue across the street in the park. You know, that would be a good place for it. They said no. So they said, well, if you don't want to go down the street or across the street, maybe you could go down the street and have it placed on the grounds of City Hall. They said no. So, well, if you don't want to do either one of the two of them, you know, he was, you know, an alumnus, a valued alumnus of Case Western Reserve Law School. Perhaps you could place it there. They said no. And they kept pressing, they persevered, and they were persistent about this being here in the Justice Center because of what they thought was the meaning of having this particular statue in this particular space. The statue cost about $75,000 for them to get it made. And even though this was their cousin who was doing the work, you know, there were costs involved. And she did it at cost, but it still cost $75,000 that they had to try to find a way to raise. And they persisted, and they persisted, and they persisted until they got all the money that was necessary, and then they persisted some more because they had to get it from their cousin's workshop in Arizona to here in Cleveland. And ultimately they got it done. And as they were getting it done, the coronavirus struck. So they had planned to have an event to celebrate the inaugural placement of this statue. But then they couldn't have it. And so they put it off for a year. But then when they wanted to have it next, coronavirus was in full-blown effect. And so they had to think about, could they have it yet? They decided they were going to go on. And so last year, they had a ceremony here, again, while the coronavirus was in full force and effect. They couldn't have the kind of event that they really wanted to have, but they decided that they were going to go ahead and have it since they had the thing placed, and people were wondering what was that and who was that. So this is the man who's responsible for all the rest of us wearing these black gowns being here. I did a rough count, and just here in Cuyahoga County alone, there are 65 of us who have served on one bench or another. All of us, each and every one of us, owes our career to this man who was like the little engine that could. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. I knew it would, I knew it would, I knew it would, I knew it would. And so I appreciate all of you coming out, you know, to honor him. He was my original role model. He was the person that I wanted to be like when I decided I wanted to be a judge. And if I ever got to be just 1/10 of the human being that he was, let alone the judicial officer that he was, I will think that I've earned my way to heaven. Thank you. By the way, this is the book that we're talking about. This is the In Service of Community, an honored elder, the Honorable Judge Perry Brooks Jackson. by Anita P. Jackson, PhD, and Lauren B. Beach. Those are his nieces. So you can probably get it on Amazon.